What's up, everybody? Sunday for week 6 is in the books. We still have Monday Night Football, but it's that time where we go through and kind of break down all the usage, what we saw yesterday, just the important stuff to keep you on your toes, things that you'll need for waivers, who we like, who we don't like, who's getting the usage, who's not. Quick shout out to a lot of the sources we check out. We always look at Pro Football Focus, Fantasy Points Data Suite, obviously our stuff at Fantasy Alarm, Player Profiler, StatHead, whatever we can get our hands on. Obviously, the NFL's own stuff. But hey, let's get into it. No time to waste. First game, we had a game 9:30 in the morning in London. Chicago Bears, Jacksonville Jaguars, and they've in recent weeks the Bears have leaned into more using their top 11 guys. Early on, we were pretty worried. Gerald Everett played a lot of snaps. Cole Kmet kind of had a dicey role. Cole Kmet now is playing virtually the entire game, 57 of 66 snaps, 37 routes of 34. 27 of 34. And then you got Roman Dudes running 27, Keenan Allen 32, DJ Moore 33. Here's my take on Cole Kmet. It's been the same from the start. If you think Cole Kmet can sustain being a top 2 or even maybe 3 target on the team, then he's a guy that has some appeal, can be a back end tight end 1 for fantasy, high end tight end 2 most likely. For me, I worry about consistency. This week it's Kmet. Next week could be somebody else, right? You got DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze. If you believe in Kmet, stick with him. For me, I honestly feel this is a bit of a sell high situation, but again, in best ball, that's fine. In redraft, I just worry that he's not going to be super consistent from week to week. For the running backs, DeAndre Swift dominated the touches in all phases, pass game, run game, all of it. He got 45 snaps, 18 for Roshan, so he's still the guy there. With the Jaguars, Brian Thomas Jr., Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, those were the guys. 35 routes for Thomas, 34 for Kirk, 34 for Davis. Evan Engram, the big story here, came back, ran 32 routes, got 10 targets, pencil him right back in. I mean, you can't pencil him in for 10 targets every single week, but in your lineup, he's got to be in there because he's a clear focal point of this offense. He was last year. They love calling tight end screens to him. And you saw again this week, Doug Peterson busting out the tight end screen. So even though he didn't play the whole game, played 38 of 62 snaps because he's coming back from injury, you're going to see him come back and play the whole game next time. Believe that. So Evan Engram rocks. At running back, Travis Etienne got hurt, actually finished with negative points in some formats, negative point one. We'd expect Tank Bigsby to be the guy, but Dearness Johnson ended up carving out a pass role. And because it was a negative game script, Dearness Johnson actually got 35 snaps to 17 for Bigsby. So Bigsby kind of more of an early down plotter type player, whereas Dearness Johnson can play those pass downs. If Etienne misses time, I still prefer Bigsby because those early down guys usually get more guaranteed touches. They're playing the Patriots this week, so should be a positive game script. You never know with these Jaguars, but Darius Johnson, I guess, is the pass catcher there if Travis Etienne misses time. Next game here, Commanders at Ravens. On the Commander side, Terry McLaurin led the show, 8 targets. We were kind of mentioned that Noah Brown was carving out the wide receiver 2 role before he got hurt. Now he comes back, ends up being the wide receiver too. 38 snaps with second most, 27 routes with second most, 8 targets tied Terry McLaurin. So he's a potential ad out there. Alameda Zacchaeus, Luke McCaffrey, De'Ami Brown, they all played less than 50% of the snaps, either 23 or fewer snaps out of 59. So not great there. Zach Ertz continues to be the pass catching guy. He out of the tight end group, he ran 33 routes, which was only one fewer than Terry McLaurin. Only got 4 targets. Again, if he goes down, Ben Sinnott probably becomes that pass catching tight end over John Bates. But until then, Zach Ertz is a guy, especially in full PPR, you should plug in there. And then with no Brian Thomas Jr., Austin Eckler led 44 snaps to 22 for Jeremy McNichols. McNichols helped on some pass downs, but Eckler played 32 pass downs to only 14 for McNichols. So Eckler kind of got the bulk of the work. If Brian Thomas Jr. remains out, Eckler is actually a pretty decent start. Cardinals at Packers here. On the Cardinals side, we watched Marvin Harrison Jr. leave with a concussion. When he left, it was Xavier Weaver who stepped in that spot. Now, it's hard to say that if he's going to be the guy moving forward because they expected to get Zay Jones back at some point, but Zay Jones came off suspension and was kind of dealing with a hamstring issue. So until then, Xavier Weaver probably playing that split end role. Michael Wilson retained his role, and Greg Dortch stayed in the slot. It's hard to go for a guy like Weaver, maybe a DFS dart throw. But if Marv misses time, it'll be Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, and Trey McBride picking up the work. Trey McBride, awesome again, 8 targets, played virtually the whole game, ran 34 or 36 routes. He's the tight end one. He really is for PPR formats. You can make arguments for Brock Bowers and George Kittle, but in terms of usage and target share and everything we look for, Trey McBride rocks. Kyler Murray, always a decent start. James Conner left with an injury here, or is actually kind of being phased out at the start of the second half for being not super efficient. I'm still waiting for some info on that, but Trey Benson played on the early downs in the second half, and Amari DiMercato played on some of those pass downs. Got to keep an eye on a guy like Trey Benson. This is what we look for. They get their foot in the door, and if they show efficiency, they can carve out a bigger and bigger role. He's the guy of the future here, so definitely keep an eye out for Trey Benson. Texans at Patriots. The Texans obviously crushed the Patriots, managed to get touchdowns to virtually everybody. What we saw here was Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell played all the two wide receiver sets. Xavier Hutchinson was the third guy, but he also rotated with John Mechie a little bit. So Hutchinson doesn't end up being interesting. For as long as Nico Collins is out, Diggs and Tank Dell are the top dogs. And then Dalton Schultz picked up some extra targets. So he's potentially startable. He's still the third fiddle, but better than it was before. So uh, we were basically leaving him on the wire. For now, he's definitely worth some spot starts. I mean, they're not going to play the Patriots every week. Joe Mixon was awesome. Damian Pierce looked good. I mean, again, it's the Patriots, but Damian Pierce mixed in. He becomes a top handcuff now that he's back. Cam Akers hardly played. Dare Gumbawali mixed in a little bit. On the Patriots side, Drake May looked better than what we got from Jacoby Brissett. Obviously, threw a really bad interception, threw a couple interceptions. Obviously, he's a rookie quarterback, so it's not going to be perfect. But for fantasy purposes, it looked way better than Jacoby. He was actually throwing the ball, 3 touchdown passes. He ran the ball 5 times. He's got to be on the radar here, man. I mean, barring good games from both Allen and Aaron Rodgers, he's probably going to end up being a QB1 on the week. Definitely a guy we were saying to add before. Now he's absolutely a must add if you need a quarterback because he's willing to run. He's willing to run, and that is worth so much in fantasy football. Kayshon Boutte led the in routes run. I mean, they do that times where it's like if he's practicing with Drake May, they'll put him out there. They have some routes that they like. I think it will settle in as the best guys once they get more work with Drake May. So we'll probably see Jalen Polk probably be a top guy. I mean, you can't start the guy. I'm still stashing him. Jamario Douglas, if you're going to start anybody, he was the one that looked best here. 9 targets, scored the touchdown, obviously. He's a low A dot guy, but in full PPR leagues, that's our type of guy. And then Kendrick Bourne got ramped up. So we still want to see how this shakes out. Jalen Polk has the most upside, but can't be started. Demario Douglas, probably the best start of the group. And then Hunter Henry, again, big snap share, big route participation, scored the touchdown this week. Didn't get as many targets as we would like. You know, when we got 4, we'd like to see 5, 6, 7. But again, that's a guy I'm holding on to because it's so uncertain there. There's not much room for upside out there. So I'm hanging on that situation. Antonio Gibson led both on pass downs and run downs with Ramondre Stevenson out. For as long as Stevenson is out, Gibson is a spot start. JaMycal Hasty played some pass snaps. So he's kind of now in the Antonio Gibson role with Gibson in the Ramondre Stevenson role. Next one here, Buccaneers at Saints. The Saints, you saw Rashid Shaheed playing his role. When Chris Olave left with injury, it was Bub Means who stepped up in his spot. Nathan Yankee over at PFF kind of was speculating that if Rashid Shaheed were to be out or Cedric Wilson, then you'd see Mason Tipton pick up those snaps. But apparently, with Chris Olave out as the split end, you have Bub Means taking over those snaps. So I don't know, could be worth a spot start here with Spencer Rattler. Hard to trust, you know. I mean, they played 70 snaps, which is abnormal. Alvin Kamara looked great getting his targets, and we figured that would be the case with the dump downs. We hit on our prop bet there. And then Jamal Williams and Jordan Mims actually played a few carries there, but it's Alvin Kamara, 52 of 70 snaps. He's the guy. At tight end, 36 routes for Juwan Johnson out of 48. Not bad. He's definitely ahead of Foster Moreau and Dallin Hooker. So as long as Taysom Hill's out, maybe spot start. But again, tough to trust any of these guys. On the Buccaneers side, we saw Chris Godwin, who is the wide receiver 1 in PPR, get 13 targets. This game was great. I mean, like our flag plant show, we don't usually victory lap too much in the middle of the season, but on our flag plant show, I had 3 flag plants. They were Chris Godwin, who's the wide receiver 1 in PPR, Alvin Kamara, who is the RB1 in PPR, and then Pat Freiermuth, who we liked. He's the tight end 8. Again, at the time, Russell Wilson was supposed to be the quarterback, but Freiermuth hasn't been bad either, so not bad on those. Anyway, back to the game here. Mike Evans, 43 snaps out of 76 because he left in the second quarter briefly. He came back, but was kind of mixing in. We'll have to check on his health. Sterling Shepard played the second most snaps while he was banged up. We were hoping Jalen McMillan would step up, but maybe he's still not healthy. Only 14 snaps. Cade Otton, if Mike Evans were to miss time, now these guys, Cade Otton, maybe Sterling Shepard, but probably Jalen McMillan are now on the radar as more interesting than they were before. Uh, with no Rashad White, Bucky Irving got 49 snaps, but Sean Tucker got 28. It felt like a lot more because he got a bunch of carries, 14 carries for each of them. Sean Tucker looked good. Todd Bowles did his classic move of coming out and saying, Sean Tucker deserves more opportunities, just like he said Bucky Irving deserves more opportunities. So here we go, three-headed monster here, Bucky, Tucky, and Rashad White, who's been sucky. So uh, we'll have to see how that goes. But for now, Bucky Irving with Rashad White out is getting the bigger role, so he's still more interesting. But Sean Tucker potentially on the radar. If it ends up being a three-headed monster, that's just terrible for everybody, though. So what are you gonna do? Next game here, Browns, Eagles. Eagles saw Devonta Smith come back, AJ Brown come back. They both looked good. Devonta Smith kind of bailed his game out with a big touchdown towards the end there. Devonta Smith, AJ Brown was getting his snaps. Dallas Goedert left very early in this game, and Grant Calcaterra picked up his snaps, 24 of 27 routes run, got some targets. Could be a spot start. We'll have to see what the injury is like for Dallas Goedert, but again, he's still third fiddle at best on this team, so not an ideal spot. And Dallas Goedert was one of our fades this week. Always hate to see a fade get hurt before they can go out and have a bad game like they're supposed to. But hopefully Dallas Goedert gets healthy. Cleveland Browns side, again, it's been a disaster for this team. Deshaun Watson's still looking rough. So it's tough to trust Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy. These guys are all stashes, hoping that Jameis Winston gets a shot and he looks good. David Njoku, good news on that front. Last week he played like 40% of the snaps. This week he played 42 of 57, got 7 targets. So David Njoku back on the menu for tight end folks out there. He was tough to start because of the usage last week, but now he's moving on up. Pierre Strong ended up leading this backfield once Jerome Ford got hurt, but that's because he plays more pass downs, right? So 30 snaps for Pierre Strong, 19 pass plays, 8 runs. Donta Foreman played 8 pass plays, so less than half of the one Strong did, but he got more carries. Thing is, Nick Chubb's going to be back this week, so nothing to really chase, in my opinion, on that front. Colts game here for the Titans side, Colts Titans. Calvin Ridley managed to catch 0 of his 8 targets. He did get 1 carry to give him 0.9 points on the day, but he was frustrated with the game. DeAndre Hopkins at least came out of the bye and played a decent snap share, 41 of 58 snaps. That's the highest he's played in a long time. So if he got dropped anywhere, I would add him. Then Tyler Boyd, Nick Westbrook, Keeney, Treylon Burks. Boyd played more than the rest of them, so definitely him over the rest of those guys. But you're going to start the third wide receiver for the Titans. It's got to be a deep league boy. Chig Okonkwo and Josh Wiley split the snaps, 33 for Chig, 23 for Wiley. That's out of 58. Chig ran more routes, 20 to 10, so he's the better fantasy asset. But again, can't trust either of them. Tony Pollard played way more snaps than Tajay Spears. Spears did get banged up, so we got to wait for info on that. But 43 snaps for Pollard to 12 for Spears. If Spears misses time, Julius Chestnut is the next man up. On the Colts side of things, it's Joe Flacco once again. So Josh Downs got peppered. We got that info mid-show on Sunday, and we basically went back to every question with the Josh Downs and said, hey, remember we said not to start Josh Downs? Now we're saying start him. Michael Pittman bailed out his day with a touchdown on a very nice play. Alec Pierce did his thing, playing a lot of snaps, not doing too much with him, but he's a boom bust player, as we know. And then Adonai Mitchell only ran 11 routes of 40. So back on the back burner for the rookie. Tight end situation is a mess, as always. Out of a 40 possible routes, 13 for Mo, 8 for Ogletree, 12 for Kylan Granson, 7 for Will Mallory. Can't trust anyone. With Jonathan Taylor out, Trey Sermon played most of the rundowns, and it was a run-heavy game for them. So 42 snaps for him to 27 for Tyler Goodson. But Goodson played 20 pass snaps to 15 for Trey Sermon. So, again, game script dependent on that front. Next game, Chargers, Broncos. On the Broncos side, they continue to run what I like to call live tryouts. The Dolphins did this a couple years ago where every game or couple games, they give a different guy a bunch of snaps and usually some targets, and they see how it looks and see if this guy's going to be part of the team moving forward. With that Dolphins team, 1 week they had Isaiah Ford play 90% of the snaps, and then they released him. They basically said, hey, we saw what it looked like. We didn't like it. You're not going to be part of the team moving forward. They released him. So this week, for the first time this year, Troy Franklin, Devon Vele, and Lucas Kroll played 60% of the snaps and they got a bunch of targets. In past games, we saw Greg Dulcich play a bunch of snaps and get 8 targets, and then he's been a healthy scratch. We watched Devon Vele start the year, then he got banged up. Last 2 weeks, he was a healthy scratch. Now he's playing, right? Troy Franklin for the first time got looks. Lil Jordan Humphrey went from being a near 80% player down to 17. Josh Reynolds is out. Josh Reynolds, though, before he was even hurt, at one point was 80%, then he was down to like 43%. It's all over the place. Adam Trotman and Nate Adkins are clearly the blocking tight ends. What we're seeing, you know, eventually, hopefully, something will stick. But right now, Cortland Sutton is the top guy. And then we don't know who the next wide receiver is. Devon Vele right now is the most interesting, in my opinion, for fantasy. At tight ends, with Greg Dulcich being a healthy and active, Lucas Kroll ran 30 of 41 routes, which is like 75%, and that makes him the most interesting. As a dart throw, I mean, we don't know who the top targets are going to be after Sutton. Worth a try in very deep leagues. And then at running back, it's been Javonte Williams leading every week, but they got Audric Estime back. He only played 2 snaps, but we'll see if they ramp him up. I mean, it hasn't been efficient between Javonte and Jaleel McLaughlin and Tyler Bidet, so maybe Audric Estime can carve out a role. On the Charger side, a lot of the same, where it's like, new coaching staff. They know they're not going to win this year. Or, I mean, maybe they don't know that. Jim Harbaugh probably always thinks he's going to win. But they're mixing and matching guys. Lad McConkey led in routes run with 31 of 38, got the most targets. He's probably the only guy you can start. Next, it was Josh Palmer with 43, Simi Fehoko with 40, and then Quentin Johnston and Darius Davis, 32 and 19. Can't really go there with those guys. Can't really go there with any of these guys. So they gave Simi Fehoko a bigger role this week. Let's see if it sticks. But it's McConkey there and then really nothing else. Hayden Hurst got hurt his groin, only played 7 snaps. So you saw Will Disley play 52 of 78. He ran 22 of 38 routes, got 5 targets, but 22 of 38 doesn't cut it. Stone Smart got a little more activity and got his first catch of the year. So, again, very deep leagues only. But maybe if Hayden Hurst is out for a while, they look around and say, okay, Eric Tomlinson and Will Disley are not pass catchers. Let's give Stone Smart some looks and see what happens. And then maybe you can catch lightning in a bottle. That's the game. I wouldn't lean too much into any of that. But in very deep leagues, dynasty leagues, Will Disley is probably not going to all of a sudden be a super mega star. This guy's had some very, very serious leg injuries. He's still a good blocker, but not super explosive. Um, on the running front, J.K. Dobbins, awesome, 57 of 78 snaps, bunch of carries, scored the touchdown. Kamani Vidal finally got some looks here with no Gus Edwards, caught a touchdown pass. He's got to be on the deep league radar too. Next game here, Steelers, Raiders, right? On the Raiders front, Kamani Vidal got his first reception. Dylan Lobby played his first snap. He only played 1 snap and he fumbled though. So still a very deep stash only. You cannot be fumbling on your only snap of the season. You're not going to get many more snaps that way. With no Devontae Adams and no Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker led with 60 snaps and 63. 39 routes of 41, only got 1 target, so could not beat his coverage. DJ Turner was next with 42. Then Alex Bachman and Christian Wilkerson both played 27 snaps. You got Bachman and Turner. Bachman-Turner overdrive for the Raiders right now, but can't really trust any of those guys. What ended up happening was Brock Bowers got 11 targets. He's the man. Harrison Bryant actually got the second most targets. He played a little bit more, ran a couple more routes, but again, we're talking deep DFS dart throws only there. Aiden O'Connell, more pretty much the same thing you got from Minshew. Alexander Madison started and played more in all phases. Amir Abdullah played on some pass downs. Alexander Madison, as long as Amir White is out, is a spot start. You just got to hold your nose and throw guys like in there if you got nothing else. Atlanta Falcons at the Carolina Panthers. Rough sledding for the Panthers. They're now 1-5. Maybe time to just bring Bryce Young back and see what it looks like. Deontay Johnson led in snaps and targets. Xavier Legette scored, but and he was second in snaps and targets for the wide receivers. Jalen Coker played over Jonathan Mingo, starting to look pretty bleak for Jonathan Mingo. Coker ran 30 routes, only 13 for Mingo. As we mentioned in our DFS article, Jatavian Sanders with no Tommy Tremble is a dart throw, only 2,600. And you know what? 7 targets, 5 catches. Absolutely will take that at his price. So he lived up to the billing. Ian Thomas came back, but just basically blocked. Chuba Hubbard has been good, played over Miles Sanders. Interesting to see what happens with Jonathan Brooks back. 54 snaps of 66 for Hubbard, 15 for Sanders. Brooks got some work to do to take that job away from Chuba. He's a starter, and he looks pretty good so far. What are you going to do? On the Falcon side, Darnell Mooney and Drake London, 67 snaps apiece out of 70. Those guys play the whole game. Raymond McLeod also playing a decent amount. He came out for some run plays, but he ran 29 routes, which Mooney ran 28 and London ran 30. So he's out there for the pass plays, gets a couple carries, mixing and matching. Again, third fiddle on this team, fourth, depending where how you look at Kyle Pitts. But you know, is what it is. Pitts still not quite playing as many snaps as we want. They put the blocking tight end Charlie Warner and Ross Dwelly out there. Charlie Warner and Ross Dwelly played 34 snaps and combined for one route run. So teams know when those guys are on the field, they're not really a threat in the pass game, which I don't know, dude. I hate seeing that from a scheme perspective because, like, obviously, if we're seeing it, teams know that, right? It's like you can double team Drake London. You can do a lot of things like that when you have guys on the field that aren't a threat to catch the ball. But Kyle Pitts, with his targets, broke off a big play again. That's why we like guys like that. If the target's going to be even between guys like Pitts and Jake Ferguson, one runs a 4-5 and the other ones are 4-8. Like, he can just do more with those targets. So that's what we look. That's kind of the difference maker for Pitts. I'm going to keep starting him because he has upside of breaking off big plays. He's got a couple, 50-yard, 32-yard plays this year. Um, Bijan Robinson, again, like in past situations, he gets more looks. They've been using more Tyler Algier though because uh, Robinson's been dealing with the shoulder issue. It's like they don't why run him against a brick wall if you got two guys that can do it. So they're going to split the snaps. Just be wary of that. You still start Bijan every week because he's awesome, but Tyler Algier is now potentially startable in certain situations. Lions at Cowboys. This was not competitive game for the Cowboys. Both teams took their starters out for the last like 8 minutes because it was a blowout. CeeDee Lamb got his looks. We start him every week. Jalen Tolbert played a ton of snaps, got some targets. Again, Jalen Brooks and Kevontae Turpin got targets as well, but they played fewer snaps. And also Turpin got some of his towards the end of the game. So it's still CeeDee and Tolbert at the top if you're going to start some of those guys. Again, Jake Ferguson also got taken out of the game, but got 4 targets. Again, he's a low A dot guy that doesn't break off big plays, but targets are there as long as Brandon Cooks is out. So Ferguson, safe but boring play. The running back situation, Rico Dowdle, he came out when the starters got pulled and Zeke got more work, but Dowdle's still the better bet. But Zeke is hanging in there. Uh, Last game here, night game, New York Giants, man. Tyrone Tracy looked good. You better call Tyrone if he's on the waiver wire because when Devin Singletary gets back, I think Tyrone's done enough that he deserves some carries still. And that's what some of these guys that we're utilizing are. Chase Brown has been a guy that was used sparingly and he deserves some carries and he could make some plays. And then Zach Moss got banged up and they fumbled. And now Chase Brown is looking like the guy. I mean, Tyrone Tracy has been more efficient than Devin Singletary. So for the time being, we'll have to see what they look like when they play together. But you cannot leave guys like Tracy on the wire. You got to try and catch lightning in a bottle when you can. Darius Slayton, once again, played big with Malik Neighbors out. Jalen Hyatt at least got to play this week, 64 snaps out of 79, same as Wan'Dale Robinson. So they actually gave him a shot this week rather than using other guys. And, he looked okay, but he's still a field stretcher for the most part. If Neighbors is out, you want Slayton and Robinson. If Neighbors is in, it's Neighbors and Robinson. Theo Johnson played a ton, but didn't do a whole lot. Pass blocked a little more than we like to see. On the Bengals side, you start Chase every week. You start Higgins every week. The tight ends here, out of a possible 35, Eric All ran 15 routes. Mike Gesicki ran 14 routes. Drew Sample ran 13. If you could even combine them all into one player, you wouldn't have got a fantasy relevant player. So Eric All is a dynasty stash, not really a guy I'm trusting in redraft. As long as Chase Brown and Zach Moss, the way this offense has been playing, you kind of start them both. But maybe it's funny because Zach Moss fumbled and the other team and the Giants recovered it and he got benched. And then Chase Brown down the stretch fumbled and then it went out of bounds. And they were just like, oh, I guess that doesn't matter because the other team didn't get it. So Chase Brown potentially ahead of Zach Moss here, but it's still going to be very close to a coin flip until we see more from that. That's it from me. Thank you guys for tuning in. Bills and Jets tonight. The waiver wire articles, all 3 of them will be out tomorrow morning. Do me a favor, like and subscribe to this channel and this video because we're doing our best to help you guys out for free. So thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. We got shows Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm on the SiriusXM show all week this week because Jim is doing baseball stuff. So see you tonight and every night this week, 6 to 8 p.m., channel 87 SiriusXM.